Thanks for tuning back in to our second half of our podcast where we are interviewing Commissioner Amelia Powers Gardner on Utah County and all the exciting things that are happening. Yeah, so kind of going along with that, that's a perfect cue up, because the other question I get a lot is people say, I want to understand the change of form of government, because there's been a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
Maybe you can give us the timeline of kind of what's happened and maybe things that are being discussed right now or possibilities for the future. You know, as a spoiler, I'll already tell you I'm very much for a change of government because, you know, we used to have our current system is antiquated. I think it's, you know, very small, and considering how the size of Utah County and how big we're going to be, we have to change things. And so maybe you can even kind of talk about that dynamic, because I know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. But just with the current number of commissioners we have and the structure, we're not in a really good place. There's some things that to me, actually kind of scare me. So anyway, with that, go for that.
You know, it's funny. This is one of those times where my engineering brain kicks in. And I get asked all the time, what's the hardest thing about being an elected official? And I tell them that the hardest thing for me being an elected official is when my preconceived notion and opinion doesn't match the facts.
Yeah.
Right? And I think the mark of a good leader is the ability to say, I was wrong. And when I started this conversation 8 years ago, just before I was in office, I didn't think we needed a change of government. I was one of the people that was out there saying, you know what, it's not necessary. I was wrong. Having lived it, and I kind of went through this phase where it's like at first I said, we don't need it. That's just more government.
And maybe explain the current structure.
So the current structure is a 3-member commission. And a commission is like the mayor and council rolled into one. It's both the legislative and executive. And then on top of that, at the county level of government, we are also the administrators.
Yes. And people, that's what I think is also key, because you're the legislative body and the executive body.
And the administrators.
And you're still putting things out there. I mean, you've still got
like
things
I am,
to do. Right.
I am product. I am the supervisor for the director of the health department. So I do his performance evaluations. I do his goals. Like in city government, you have a mayor who is kind of like your authority figure. Yep. But you also have a city administrator.
And they're running most of the operations.
They're hiring people. They're firing people. They're doing the interviews. They're running the day-to-day operations. And of course, they do it at the direction of the mayor.
Absolutely.
But they're running the day-to-day operations. At the county, your elected officials are your department heads.
Yes.
They're the ones who set the budget. They're the ones who sign the paperwork. They're the ones who do the day-to-day activities. They're the ones who hire and fire employees. They're the ones who do those things. So we have these administrative roles that we do. Plus, we have the legislative role, which, by the way, is the most sexy part, and that's the part that most people run on, and it's really maybe 20% of our job. Maybe. It's like 10 to 20% of our job is actually political. The rest of it is administrative and executive. So the county commissioners, you take the mayor, the council, the administration, you roll it all into one, and then you split that by 3. So in a small county, this can work.
And it worked probably in the 70s.
Yeah.
Totally okay.
But when you start getting to a bigger part, it's very nuanced, because a lot of people say, well, just hire more staff. The problem is, in state law, under a commission form of government, there are things staff can do and things staff can't do. So there are committees, statewide transportation committees, that technically only an elected official can have a voting spot on. So if Utah County wants a vote, which, by the way, 43.6% of the state's growth, second largest county, we will be the biggest county. We should probably
Those are imperative meetings and critical, you know?
We should be in every room.
Absolutely.
Where every decision is made, and we should have a vote in every room.
And if there's 3 commissioners,
you can't.
Exactly. You can't. There's only so many hours in a day.
I literally have a spreadsheet to keep track of all the committees I've been appointed to.
Oh, I'm sure.
And there's a 0% chance that I can make it to every single meeting because a lot of the meetings happen at the same time. I have literally been in a committee meeting at the Capitol building where I'm a voting member and I need to be there. And my phone has buzzed and it's been my policy advisor. And she says, hey, we need you to call into this meeting to vote. They don't have a quorum. So then I step out of this meeting that I'm in as a
Meeting
voting
one,
member. I
yes.
call into Zoom meeting 2 so that they can have a quorum. I vote in that meeting and then I put it on mute and walk back into this meeting and I'm voting in this meeting and then I walk out to vote in this meeting and I can't send a staffer to either one because legally it has to be the elected official.
And that's what people don't understand because that's where I think from when I say it scares me how it's run, it's because we are not getting a voice in some of these things. And not because we don't have good people wanting to be there.
Right.
It's because of the way that statutory kind of
Mhm.
rules. And to your point, I mean, it's like you can only be in one place at one time.
Right.
You know?
And then on top of that, a lot of the problems that we have need big solutions.
Yeah.
And big solutions need collaboration. They need collaboration with the state. They need collaboration with the federal. And the first time that I flew out to DC as a commissioner to sit down with members of our federal delegation, I started talking to them about our transportation. And I would talk about how bad our transportation is in the west part, the east-west corridors. They would say, oh, well, but it's not as bad as Salt Lake County's. I'd be like, no, it's worse.
It's actually worse. Yes.
And they'd be like, no, Salt Lake County is the worst. I'm like, no, I can show you the models. Like, we literally have a 4-hour rush hour on Pioneer Crossing on your
Yes.
average Tuesday, sunny afternoon.
Mhm.
Our federal delegation, the ones who sit on the Federal Transportation Committee who get the money, didn't even know we had a problem. They thought Salt Lake County was worse than us, which is why Salt Lake County was getting the money. The reason why we weren't getting the money is because they didn't know. And the reason they didn't know is because commissioners had never flown out to DC and told them.
Yeah.
Right. And now we're starting to get money, but it's unsustainable that way. So we've got that aspect of it. And then on top of that, my first budget as a commissioner, 45 minutes before the meeting, a budget gets uploaded, a $1.3 billion budget gets uploaded to the agenda system 45 minutes before the meeting. I walk into that meeting having not seen this budget, and my 2 other commissioners had traded votes in that meeting. One of them hadn't even read the budget. So we had one commissioner who decided on a $1.3 billion budget, uploaded it 45 minutes before the meeting, and then traded his vote with another commissioner to get them to vote for it to pass that budget. I had never seen it. So I voted no because I hadn't seen it.
I remember
And then
when
for
you
the
voted no
next
on
year,
that. Yep.
and then for the next year, that other commissioner who had traded, not the one who hadn't even seen the budget, but had traded his vote for it, we would literally get emails. They would send an email. He would send an email to the HR manager and CC the other commissioners and say, hey, what's the status of that clerk position in the Justice Court? And I would reply to the email and say, that position doesn't exist because the budget that you voted for that you didn't read didn't include that position. And he would reply and say, well, we need that position. And I would reply and say, correct. Then you shouldn't have voted for a budget that didn't include it. I mean, his emails basically told us he had no clue what was in the budget he voted for, but he traded votes.
It's like people go, well, and people,
We should not-
again,
you
we
should not
be
have-
voting for that. Exactly.
You should not have a 3-member commission with a $1.3 billion budget where 2 people can make a back.
Well, and we've had
room deal.
situations where somebody's been sick,
That was going to be my third point. My third
And-
point was that
unable to be there, or a wedding or whatever.
last year we had a
Crazy.
commissioner who had brain cancer. Horrible situation.
Horrible
Don't
situation.
wish it on anybody. But for 10 months, he didn't show up at work. I couldn't miss a single day of work in 10 months, or we didn't have a quorum and we couldn't do a single thing. I had to call into meetings from my son's senior trip in Vancouver.
Mhm.
Commissioner Gordon was calling in from his family reunion at Bear Lake. I once had a meeting that I was so sick that I had 0 voice, and I mean 0 voice. Like I couldn't even whisper. And I had to join via Zoom and have my camera on. And to vote, I had to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down because when I would speak, nothing would come out, not even whispers. But I had to vote because we had missed several meetings,
Mm-hmm.
and the business of the county can't go on without the vote of 2 commissioners.
Yeah. And it's crazy though that, like you're saying, I mean, the budget, the meetings, these critical meetings we need to be in.
We have almost a million citizens.
Yes, exactly. And then we have 3 people. So if even there's family, there's vacation, there's sickness, there's whatever, but what's really scary is that really it comes down to then 2 people,
Mhm.
And so anyway,
And
I've
by the way, if those 2 people disagree,
yeah, then
nothing can
nothing
get
gets done.
done.
Then you're in. Then you're
We've
just in
had-
like it's a stalemate.
We
Yeah,
had multiple instances where the other commissioner and I disagreed, and literally nothing can get done.
yeah. Then it's like, well, okay.
I mean,
Yes.
this is crazy for a government of our size. And then, so then there's a lot of people that say they want mayor, council, commission. I mean, honestly, either one would be okay at this point. Mayor, council probably makes more sense, but I'm okay with an expanded commission.
Yeah.
But Utah state law currently states that in counties with more than 250,000 people, an expanded commission is part-time.
Mm,
So that doesn't solve the problem. We go to 5 commissioners, but they're all part-time and they have a day job.
yeah.
So then how am I supposed to be in 2 meetings and a day job?
Right.
So currently under state law, our options are 3-member full-time commission, expanded part-time commission.
Which is not going to work, by the way, people. Not going to
Well,
work.
how do you?
It doesn't. Well,
How
that's the
am
worst.
how am I the supervisor for the health department, the IT, the HR, while I'm part-time?
Right.
Because I have another day job.
Well, and the meetings get
And the
set,
meetings-
and you're not even able to attend all of them.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
it doesn't make sense.
And then on top of that, then we've got the mayor council, which could work. But that right now, the process, it has to go to a study committee,
Mm-hmm.
or it has to get a petition to get on the ballot, which is really hard in a county of our size because we're so big. You need so many signatures. And then so getting it on through a petition is very difficult. Otherwise, we have to commission a study committee, and then the study committee gives recommendations, and then we put those recommendations on the ballot. At this point right now, without a change in state law, the soonest a change could occur is 2029. We grow by a minimum of 20 to 25,000 people a year. We'll have 100,000 more people in our county by the time that could change.
Which is unbelievable. So basically, what would be needed right now would be something at the state level
Mhm.
to redefine terms, to
Mhm.
redefine abilities of what you could do
Correct.
to change the form. And
And how.
I'm with you as well. I mean, I would like to see. I'm fine with either kind of the mayor commissioner form, but expanded. But I'm not okay with the expanded part time because
Right.
it just doesn't work.
It just doesn't work.
In today's society, it's either you're in there doing it full time or you're not. I mean, I served on the school board, and that was like they were like, "Oh, it's a part time thing." No, let me be very clear. That was an 80-hour a week
Right.
type thing, and it could have even been more if I
Right.
wanted, right? So, and with the way that our county is set for growth, I think it's very irresponsible if we did a part time, only because it's not a part time job,
Right.
and you still would not be able to be at all
Right.
the meetings.
So right now our options are, if every box gets checked and if it goes the way we want, we could change form of government in 2029 for a mayor council, or we go to a part-time commission, or we stick with the 3-member. All
three are not great.
Are not
Like,
great.
They're not great solutions.
Right
So-
now, there isn't an option.
Yes.
The interim committee for the legislature, a joint Senate and House interim committee on political subdivisions, recently voted to open a bill file to look into change of government, not just for Utah County, but for counties in general, right? To look at, can we allow people to do full-time? How do they change this? I'm hopeful that something decent will come out of that. But as is the current system, it's just, it's too easy for
It's corruptible.
corruption. Yeah,
It's corruptible.
too easy for corruption. It's not efficient, and there's not a lot of
And
representation.
there's not a lot of benefit.
I have more constituents than a member of Congress,
Yes.
but I don't have the staff members of a member of Congress. Like, how do you represent everybody?
Well, and we briefly discussed this too, but even just in order to get on the ballot, like that's another thing that needs to be tweaked because how many signatures are needed to go on the ballot for a county commissioner seat
In Utah County,
in Utah County?
about 9,000.
And what is it for a member of Congress?
7,000.
So it's actually fewer signatures,
Uh-huh.
7,000.
Uh-huh.
But to be on the county commission, which is not as we're going to say it's not as glorious,
Correct.
right? Well, and having worked in politics,
Not as
nothing is.
lucrative, not as
yes.
glorious. Yeah.
Although you don't get an office and staff like you're saying,
Right.
and so right now you need that, and then like in order to get on the ballot for a House race, it's
1,000.
1,000. So take all those numbers into consideration. But I mean,
And
and so
Senate's 2,000.
and a lot of people are not choosing to run for county commission that way, as far as gathering signatures, because they're like, well, I could run for Congress and do fewer signatures and pay less money to do those.
And by the way, it's way easier to raise money running
and
for Congress.
way easier to raise money because nobody cares. Well, people don't realize. They're like, oh, county government, yeah, but they just don't understand the impact that makes. And it is so important that we have the right people in that don't have conflicts of interest either, as far as, well, I should say, very obvious conflicts of interest. And so some of those rules also need to be a little bit changed.
It's funny. I had, so I was very vocal about this and about how it's not quite working. And I had some commissioners, some from Utah County, more from other counties, that came to me, and they don't want a change in a 3-member commission. And they don't want to change in a 3-member commission because they have the ability to control things.
Absolutely.
And
it's a more of a dictator. I'm not going to say
Right.
dictatorship. We're going to say small monarchy. No, but I don't know what it would be.
I don't
Well,
know.
it's not really monarchy either, but it's definitely, it's too much power though.
Yeah.
And control. And when somebody says, I don't want to change the form of government because then it, is maybe, I'm not going to say harder to get things done, but I'm saying it's definitely, it
They will
disperses
say
the power.
right.
It disperses the power. It's
Yeah.
a little bit more even
yeah.
with other people.
Well, so I had these commissioners come to me as I was saying, hey, we need this. And this was like almost like an intervention. Like they were coming to me to try to convince me to not be vocal about this. And they sat down and they said, well, Amelia, you really get to control everything. Why would you want to change that? And it was like they were trying to appeal to my ego. And I just started laughing. And I said, what you guys need to understand is it's not why I got into
It's not
government.
my motivation.
It's not my motivation.
Right.
And it just showed me that was their motivation. I literally had one that was like, yeah, but I want the full-time gig, and I quit my job, and this pays more than my other job. So I don't want to go mayor council because then I would lose my job. And I'm like, well, do you think it's an efficient system? And he's like, well, no, but that's not the point. This is my job.
Right. It
I'm-
becomes more about them than the actual process and system.
Yeah. So I've had commissioners in other counties tell me that they don't want to support a change because they like their job. I've had commissioners in our county and other counties say they don't support a change because they like being able to control everything, and it's like everyone.
None of those are great reasons, by the way.
This was my point. And it's funny because as they're saying this to me, I'm like, you guys realize like you're not actually helping your case, right?
Like give me some real data. That's
Like, you're not
better
changing
right
my
now.
mind.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, this is not speaking to me.
Yeah.
At
And
all.
it was funny to me when I was like, okay, you guys, you're just gonna have to change your tactics because what you're doing here is not working.
Right. No, and I agree. And I've talked to a few people, and I think it kind of goes along with just what we talked about at the beginning, really, of growth, right? It's kind of that growth mindset. Sometimes you have to pay up front for the dividends later, right? And so the people that I've talked to that say, oh, but it would cost our county so much more money if we had these, full-time commission seats. I'm like, you don't understand the amount of time and wasteful money that it actually it's going to save you, like more time. We're going to have more of a seat of a table. Like think of being able to have more clout, or not even, I don't want to say clout. I just want to say like dialogue, being present with UDOT, for example. I mean,
Well,
like on
I'll
our
give you an example.
roads.
So up north, let's take Davis County and Weber County. Okay, Davis County and Weber County combined don't have the same population we have. Combined, Weber County and Davis County have less population than us. They work together as a block. Okay, geographically, they're less than us. So geographically, less area than us, population-wise, less population than us. But they work together, which means they ultimately have 6 commissioners, right? Because they're working together. There is a beautiful road that, if you've driven on it, that goes from I-15 out west, north of the Great Salt Lake.
Yes.
Okay. That road has like no traffic on it, right? Think Pioneer Crossing, 2 a.m.
Like a dream come true.
Right.
Yeah.
That road was built by UDOT because that area will reach, that whole population of that area out there will reach 87,000 people. So they proactively built that road because that area is going to have 87,000 people. West Lehigh, Saratoga Springs, Eagle Mountain currently has 127,000 people, and we don't have a road that big.
No, not at all.
Because we weren't in the
And
room.
growing still. Yes.
Because we didn't have somebody in the room when UDOT was making those decisions.
Right.
Having 5 commissioners or 7 commissioners or a mayor council, we would have the ability to have people in that room.
Right.
It more than pays for itself.
It more than pays for itself. I think it's really short-sighted to when people say, "Oh, it's going to cost us more money." I'm like, "Do you realize what our budget is? What is the budget?" Like, I mean,
yeah, it's just shy of $160 million in the general fund.
Yes.
And that's the fund that pays for this. So it's like this increases our cost by $1 million. That's like
that's nothing.
0.75%.
Right. Right. And what it would actually do for us.
So less than 1%, but the return on that would be huge.
Yep. I agree. Well, this is so fun to chat with you. I could always chat with Amelia, for like my good friend here, forever. But these are really important issues. And so I'm really glad that you came, because like what people don't realize, if they're in Utah County, well, first of all, even if you're not in Utah County, you better be paying attention to what's going on in Utah County.
Right.
Because this is where the growth is, just to your point. And if you are in Utah County, it's good to know this, and I get people that ask me all the time, hey, is it good to invest in Utah County? I'm like, you know what? Let me show you the data. Yeah. Because guess what? You will be doing just great, investing in Utah County. It's where the growth is. You've got a lot happening. So I just hope that we can get the change of form of government taken care of a little bit in a more expedited fashion, instead of waiting around till 2029 to actually think about doing something.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the legislature, they've looked at it. I'm not fully confident that they're going to do it.
I would say talk to your reps about it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I would tell anybody, just say, hey, you know what? This really needs to happen, because it's not just Utah County.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Davis County is over 350,000 people now.
Yes.
And their budget is almost as big as ours. And should 3 people be controlling that budget?
No. Right? I think it's actually scary. Like I said, it actually scares me when you really start thinking about it, and having watched, and I've been to so many commission meetings, and having watched, 2 people sitting there making decisions. It's a little frightening, and it's a lot of pressure. I mean, it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of, it's better to have, I think, more oversight, more eyes on things. And so I would say, just for anyone, even statewide, you should be talking to your representative and saying, you know what, we need to have better options.
That's the key.
And it's about the options. It's not that the legislature has to say, Utah County, this is what you're doing, but they need to provide open, better options so that we can make those right choices.
Well, and I think that's true from, Duchesne to Davis County.
Absolutely.
Right now, we have very few options. If the legislature would just open it up and let the local, we always talk about local control. Letting the local control decide, do you want a commission form or a mayor council? Do you want 3, 5, or 7 members? And do you want them to be full-time or part-time? I mean, it's that
easy, though. I mean, it really is, to open that up. Absolutely.
We've got counties that have 1,000 people in them. I'm dealing with pushing 1 million people. We can't, and we have the same form of government. I mean, that's great. So I agree. Letting options, and then each community can pick what works for them.
Right.
And I think that'll make a big difference. You mentioned something earlier I wanted to bring up. You asked about Utah City and about the investment area. Um, I'm a big fan of what Vineyard is doing
Mhm.
as far as the growth goes. I think it's a great place for it. It's right by a front
I
runner
love it too.
station.
Mhm.
Um, it's, Gen Z does not have the ability in many cases to own a home and have 2 cars.
Mhm.
So I know there's all these conspiracy theories around like walkable cities and how this is like Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum forcing this upon us. Like nobody is forcing anything. If it was forced, I would 100% oppose it. But we have Gen Z that many of them don't want to own a car, or they only want to own 1 car. They want to be able to walk. And if they need to drive somewhere,
And good
they'll
for
call an
them.
Uber. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Not only that, but their family can't afford 2 cars.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, just to even get into the house.
yeah,
And, I mean, right now, even getting into a house, nationally, if I just read this right, it's like age 36.
yeah,
And so that's their first home. Like back in my day, like we bought our first home when we were like 25,
yeah.
right? And so maybe even
I
less.
owned a
Actually, we were
farm on my
less. Yeah,
30th
I was going to
birthday.
say, I think by then I already I was on like house 3,
Yeah.
And so, so I think that looking at that, and even as a parent myself, it's like with grown kids, we're having to help a little bit, where
Yeah.
we can,
Yeah.
because housing is tricky. And to your point about the cars, there's a lot of waste. I think we're going to be seeing, more of the driverless cars. We're going to
Mhm.
start seeing more options. I would love to see. I need to do an episode on trains, by the way. But anyway, because I love trains, I'm a big train fan. But I want to see like more like just trains even that are going,
Yeah. And
down to St.
vertiports.
George and Las
We're
Vegas.
going to have vertiports.
Yes.
Those, I mean, trains, planes, and automobiles. Let's talk about it, right? So, yeah, we've got vertiports. Utah County is one of the test areas for this. I think we'll have it before the Olympics,
And
where
maybe
people.
explain what that is, because some people
So,
don't
a
know.
vertiport is like a very small airplane.
Mm-hmm.
It holds anywhere between like 5 and 10 people. Um, and it's almost like an air taxi that can have very, very short or vertical,
I
very
always
short
think of
runway or
like
vertical.
Star Wars,
Yeah.
like I'm thinking of like what's the episode?
Yeah, with the
With the
city.
city, and
Yeah.
it's like, you see it all like crossing each other. That's
Yeah.
basically what it could look
Okay.
like.
Yeah, that's what it could look like. And we're putting charging stations at the Provo airport. This is going to be a way. Delta has announced that they're going to be doing this in like LA and Manhattan. Salt Lake City Airport will be not too far behind, because we are prepping for the Olympics,
Mm-hmm.
where people, for not much more than like an Uber Black SUV, you could take one of these vertiports to and from the airport. Right?
I
It's
saw some pictures online of some of my friends doing this, and I was like a little bit jealous. But
yeah,
anyway, yeah,
it's a little bit more than like
they
an
were
Uber
showing it. Yes.
Black SUV. And so those things are coming. You're going to have families that don't want a car. I think we kind of have it all here in Utah County, and the key is that none of it's forced and none of it's
Mm-hmm.
monitored by, the federal or state government.
There's
It's
not a lot
like,
of conspiracy in it.
no. So if you are a Gen Z and you want to live in an apartment and you want to be able to walk to the grocery store and the park and the front runner station, Utah City is a great option for you. And if you're going to buy a home there, it's going to be more affordable. It's going to be smaller, no yard.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And it may have a name change down the road.
yeah,
Yeah,
and it may be,
like some people are like, "What is this Utah City?" And I
yeah,
was like, "Look, I'm just going to call it a place card holder
yeah.
for now."
And
But
then
yes, but I love that.
if you want a single family home, we're working on that too. That's why we're talking about a water treatment plant
Well, and I
south of
look
the
at like the
lake.
Point Project,
Yeah.
right? Like Salt Lake County. I mean, I love how it's been planned. I'm good friends with the people up there doing it. They're planning for all different types of products and things, and that's the future, right? And transportation. They're planning already right now, like at the Point Project, to have trains that go to the airport, trains that go, to the east side, So I
Mhm.
mean, there's going to be that infrastructure, and I love that we're getting the foresight. But to your point, we have to be looking at all those things and
Yeah.
what's going to be a reality
Mhm.
in a few years.
Yeah, and it's an all of the above strategy. And I have people say, "Well, I don't want to live in a townhouse." Okay, well then don't.
Then don't.
But
Right.
if somebody who does want to live in a townhouse, let's let them. Um, and sometimes younger people want a single family home, but they just can't afford it. So let's give them a price point where they can enter the market, where they can gain equity, and then they can start to grow wealth. The middle class grows wealth through home ownership. We have to
Absolutely.
keep it accessible for them.
It usually becomes your greatest asset by the time you're retired.
Right.
And you know what? There's studies done. I always have to throw in the real estate angle on things because I see it. And home ownership brings safer communities too. Like when you have home
Hmm.
ownership, you've got
Huge.
people invested in the community, and people don't think about that. But
Hmm.
it's a big deal
It
because if
is.
you have just a community of all rental properties by some large, corporation, there's not a lot of buy-in to the
Yeah.
community. So it brings safer communities, better schools. It brings homeownership is so critical. Jobs, infrastructure,
It's the
it's all
basis
of
of the
it.
American dream.
Absolutely.
It's the basis of the American dream. It's the attainable ability to grow wealth for the middle class. And for the first time in history, people feel that homeownership and the American dream is less achievable for the younger generation than it was for the one before it. For the first time in history.
hmm Sadly, and I'm seeing that, and I hear it a lot, and I'm seeing a lot of parents or grandparents. I was actually just talking to Senator Curtis about this, but they're looking at maybe being able to have a transfer of wealth from before someone passes away, being able to gift a higher amount of money to kids or grandkids, and towards even down payments
Well,
or
do
things like that.
you want to hear my idea?
I love it.
This is my idea. I think that we should change the federal rules about using your retirement for a down payment on a primary residence,
hmm
not just a first time, any primary residence. I think if you're going to pull money out of a 401k or an IRA, it should have no penalty and no taxes if it's going to the down payment of a
I
primary
agree.
residence.
And I think there's some people talking about doing something very similar to
Yeah,
this.
I called Senator Curtis and Senator Lee and Congressman Kennedy, and I talked to all three of their offices about this. And every one of them right now, well, first of all, you can for a first time home, but it's
Mhm.
limited.
Mhm.
And I want it to be for any home, not just your
Mhm.
first. Because what if your first home was a condo or a townhouse, but then now you've got 3 kids,
Exactly.
right?
You've got more expenses on things
Right.
too.
Um, and so we've got that aspect of it. But then, so one of the questions they came back is they said, well, then why hasn't this ever been done before? And I said, let me tell you why it hasn't been done before.
Oh, I know
Because every
why.
person making our
Mhm.
making our laws has been of the boomer generation, and it's starting to be Gen X. But the boomer generation and Gen X have not dealt with
Mhm.
housing the way we have. I'm a millennial,
Mhm.
and my generation and then my children are Gen Z, and that generation, homeownership is not attainable.
Well, and some of them, this is what's interesting. I don't know if I've thrown this statistic out on my podcast before, but I thought it was interesting. I went to a conference for the National Association of Realtors. This is National Association of Realtors. And they said, just so you know, they said in all of the years they've done a study, they do an annual study of why do people buy homes? The number one reason is because it usually is a financial decision.
Mhm.
It's just, it's the number one reason. Hey, I think it's a smart thing to do. They said about 8 years ago, it changed. And the younger generations, do you know what the number one reason is?
Why?
Because they want to have a dog. Number two is because it seems like it's a good financial decision. So I've even asked some of my younger clientele, and I'll say, this is just like a stat that
That's
I've heard.
funny.
And I want to know. And they said, Heather, sadly, it's true. We love our fur babies and they want a yard or that. And that's ends up, one of the reasons why they decide they want to buy is because they have, dogs or
Yeah.
animals or something. And so anyway, but
Do you know what it
kind
really
of
comes down to though? Is it's liberty. They want
yes.
freedom.
They want
They want
yes.
if I want a dog, I want to be able to own a
And
dog.
they don't want to have a landlord tell them
Right.
if they can have one or two dogs or whatever
Right.
that might be.
Right. It's literally freedom. It's
Yes.
freedom and liberty and the American dream.
But I just think it's interesting, and it's just an interesting
Yeah.
thought, but we still do need home ownership,
So
you
there's one
know?
thing that a lot of people don't realize that I hear a lot of people in the boomer generation say things like, well, if these young kids wouldn't buy their $5 coffee, they could get a place. This is what I want those people to realize if they take away nothing else. The greatest generation spent about 25% of their household income on housing. And when I say household income, most times it was
One
one.
single. That's my thing too.
Okay.
It was one person.
The boomer generation spent about 30 to 35%. And usually it was one household income, one full-time working person, 30 to 35%. Gen X spends 40 to 45%.
Mhm.
And that's one or two.
And that's
That's
I was
really
gonna
one
say,
or two
I would say
incomes.
because I'm a Gen X and we are the crossover
Yep.
generation where it's now two, usually it's like maybe somebody was at home for a little while with
Right.
kids, but it crossed over
Like
into
one and a
two
half.
incomes. Yeah.
Like
I'd
one
say
and
I
a half
see about
incomes.
50-50. Yeah.
And it's about 40 to 45% of their income. So millennials, my generation, we are almost all two incomes.
Yes.
And we are spending 50 to 55% of our income. Gen Z, it's up to 60% of two incomes.
Yep.
They're buying $5 coffee because they're like drowning their sorrows
Mm-hmm.
because they can't afford a home.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? No amount of $5 coffees is going to help
Well,
them
and
afford
it's
a home.
not enticing for them when they look at
Right.
what's the rental price versus what is my
Even
payment.
the rental prices are crazy.
And it's it's just it's difficult.
We're in the process of purchasing a home in Lehigh right now, and we've sized up. And my father-in-law was helping us move in, and he said, "Why are you buying a bigger home? All of your kids are about to move out." And I said, "Oh, cute. You think that 18 and 19-year-olds move out now?"
Yeah.
No.
This isn't like
No. What's happening now is 18 and 19-year-olds go to college. And then when they graduate college at 21 and 22, they come and move back in because they can't afford a home and they've got a college degree and a full-time job.
Right. No, and it's very true. The other thing is, I talk about this a lot with my clients that are, saying when they're older, they're like, oh, we're going to downsize. And I'm like, you need to size differently. It's
Yeah.
not, downsizing is not always the answer. It's sometimes you need a different floor plan, but you need to accommodate or think about accommodating someone else in your house.
Mhm.
A lot of times there's kids that come and go at different ages. There's just different situations. Maybe you don't need a big backyard. That's what I tell people. I'm like, you may not need all the yard, when you're
Yeah.
retiring. But then there's different things to buy. But anyway, that's another whole conversation. But I'm excited about what's happening in Utah County. I'm very thankful for your service because I
Thank
know
you.
you've served well. You've done a lot in the county, and I think you've given a great vision for the future. So I'm excited to see what your next plans are and see what you're kind of doing next. And
Yeah.
for right now, it looks like you're going to be going to a 4th of July event.
Right now, I'm celebrating America.
Yes, I love it. I love it all.
And I don't know what the future holds yet. I get people ask me, they're like, what are you going to do next? I don't know. Haven't decided yet. But right now, I'm just focused on trying to solidify a proactive mindset at the county, get that embedded in the culture, and put as many services online and accessible and remote as possible so that we can make interacting with government as seamless and painless as possible for our citizens. Those are the two things that I'm
And you know
hyper-focused
what?
on.
I applaud you. It's like if I could, I'd give you a standing ovation. So
Thank you.
thank you so much. And thanks for being on High on Utah. And remember to subscribe. And thanks for listening today. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.